Let's jump into our first example. We're going to talk about ticketing, and we'll go through the process of ticketing and what's required. Then I'm going to take you through a code sample in .NET, and then we'll see what the result of that sample looks like when we run it through a web browser. Before continuing with this video, make sure you've watched the IIS configuration video just so you understand the things that need to be configured inside of IIS as well as for certificates for your ticketing API solution to work. So for ticketing, the process goes something like this. The user makes a request to the Qlik proxy service, and they're immediately redirected to an authentication module. So if you think back to what we talked about before, identity management like Active Directory, maybe there's a web page where you enter in a user ID and password. You do that, and once that happens, the authentication module sends back to the Qlik proxy service, hey, this person is confirmed. Their identity has been confirmed. So the proxy service says, okay, great. I'm going to take their user credentials and send those back through the authentication module, send back a ticket. This ticket is then going to be passed back to the client browser, and a redirection is going to happen through the proxy service where the URL to, let's say, the hub plus a Qlik ticket parameter with this ticket will go ahead and log you into Qlik Sense. What happens once you get past the proxy is a session is created for you in the form of a session cookie, and then you're authenticated into Qlik Sense and you're able to see the content. For ticketing, port 4243 is required inbound to contact the REST API so that you can acquire the ticket. You do need a trusted digital certificate containing a private key. You have to have a virtual proxy configured with authentication module redirect URI to the resource that's going to be your fallback page for logging in. And the URL and headers need to contain an XRF key parameter and value to prevent cross-site scripting errors. So we'll go into that momentarily when we walk through the code. Okay. I'm in the test code that I've created for my ticket request and forwarding mechanism to Qlik Sense. And I've got some HTML here, and I've styled it with some Bootstrap. So it's got a lot of information there, but we're going to skip right to the script. And the first piece of code we're going to walk through is this ticket request method. In this ticket request method, we have to do a couple of things. The first thing that we need to do is we need to apply our certificate. So you can see in this section that I've highlighted blue, the first thing we do is we look at the certificate store on the Windows machine, and we're looking in the local machine personal certificate store, and we're specifying the certificate we want to find as the Qlik client. So what I've done previously, or what I'll do next, is demonstrate how you can import the Qlik client certificate into the local machine personal store so that you can use it in your .NET code for getting a ticket. After that, we have another line right here, and you can see I've got some comments up above it. This line basically bypasses any certificate validation. And the reason why we need to have that in here for right now is because I'm using the Qlik client certificate. When you install Qlik Sense, you are provided with certificates, which is great because HTTPS is turned on by default. These certificates have a root certificate that is self-signed. As a result, when you try to run these certificates through code like .NET, or in some cases Java, in other languages, you may have to provide a method that will ignore the check to see whether or not the certificate is from a true trusted certificate authority. Ours is not, it's self-signed, and so therefore we need to have this line in here in order to manage that. When we go ahead and make our request to the proxy, we're specifying port 4243, and we're clicking, going to the QPS, which is the Qlik proxy service, and we're going to the REST endpoint called ticket. And then inside of that, we're going ahead and we're supplying our cross-site scripting key here. We're creating our request, and then we're applying our certificate to that request. We're setting our method. In this case, we're setting a post method, and we're going to supply some JSON information to this request. We're also adding a header for our Qlik XRF key, which is going to match the parameter that we added earlier. And then in our body, we're going to supply a string that is comprising of the user ID of the user directory for which the user belongs inside of Qlik Sense, and we can pass along any attributes that we want that we can use within security rules using the environment controls in security rules within Qlik Sense. After that, we're just going to not pass any attributes in at this time, but after we're done setting up this message, we can then go ahead and put it into our request stream, write it into our request stream, and then we can go ahead and get a response. And that response will be a ticket. So if we look at the rest of our code, we have our go button click. This is basically going to call this ticket request and specify the parameters that we have. It's going to grab that ticket response. It's going to parse through the response because the response is JSON. We're going to pull out the ticket, and then in this last line here, you can see we're going to the hub of our virtual proxy, and we're passing the Qlik ticket, which is the value that we've just gotten from the REST API. And then lastly, when we want to launch, we're just doing a response redirect to that ticket.txt file. Let's go to the Qlik Sense server and set up our virtual proxy. So I'm in the virtual proxies section of the QMC, and I'm going to click on the Create New button. For the description of my virtual proxy, I'm going to type in web ticket, and I'm going to make prefix the same. And then I'm going to add web ticket to the end of the session cookie header name because I need to make it unique. And then for the load balancing, I'm going to choose the central node. I'm going to click on the authentication tab, and underneath the section here, I'm going to leave no anonymous users. I want it set to ticket. The Windows authentication pattern is fine, left the way it is. And I'm going to enter in the URL for my authentication module redirect. So this is if I end up going to the Qlik Sense server and the virtual proxy first, it will actually kick me back to the authentication module first. And this is just an HTTP address on my web server pointing to the ticket request ticket that ticket request code that we just went through. So now we're going to click on the Advanced tab, and in the WebSocket origin whitelist, I'm going to add the fully qualified name for the Sense server. I found that this is sometimes necessary when you are using a different address than the local computer name for the Qlik Sense server. And then I'm also adding the web server to the WebSocket origin whitelist because that's where the request for the ticket's going to come from. After that, I'll click Apply and then OK. Then I'm going to go over to the associated items, click on Proxies, and I'm going to link this virtual proxy to the central proxy. Once that's complete, I'll go ahead and click on the Virtual Proxies button, and I'll be prompted to restart the QMC. Now that the virtual proxy has been loaded, we can go ahead and go to our web page. And you'll notice I'm going to go to the virtual proxy and point to the hub, and that automatically redirects us to the ticket example. And now I'm typing in the address to the sent server, the virtual proxy, as well as the user ID. And in the response from server, I'll click Get Ticket, and you'll see I get the ticket. And then the redirect URI, you can see how I've applied that ticket in the parameter. And I'll click on Use Ticket. And that brings me to the hub. You can find the .NET sample page and more on Qlik Branch. Qlik Branch is our open source development environment where you can go and share solutions with other people who are working with Qlik as well. This particular ticketing example is underneath the security integration for Qlik Sense projects, and it's the QS ticket ASP.NET page.